Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nest. I'm your host, as always, Rainbow, and with me are our two guests from the Majors Division, Avalix, who is from Bench Boys, and Zim, who is from Odyssey, the Majors Odyssey, obviously. Um, and so, yeah, so we're going to be here going over what happened last week in the Majors Division and moving on. First, just want to talk about playoffs. Reminder that playoffs is going to be the top 5 teams from each division, and teams 4 and 5 are going to face each other, going up against first and then second, third facing off. And a reminder that All Stars voting is still open, so head over to the announcements channel if you have not gotten your vote in yet. That is going to be closing soon, so you want to make sure your voice gets heard on who you think are the best players in Owlet. But yeah, so let's take a look at last week's matches for the Majors division. So I'd like to hear from you guys what you think were some of the most interesting matches that we had last week.
I'd probably say definitely the Bench Boys game. It was the first kind of test that we really had. We kind of rolled over everybody. Shows were not perfect, and it was pretty close.
Cool. And
Agree with that.
Yeah.
The Bench Boys match being a loss really shows just how close the top of the Majors division is in terms of skill. As in, all of these games have the potential to go either way.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I think we need to talk about the 3-1 that Velocity University, which I believe is 6th in majors, getting a 3-1 over dice rolls. I think is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I didn't watch the game, but I don't think dice rolls are that good, so it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Any more analysis I think kind of happened with that match? Vivi?
Honestly, I have no idea what happened. That's a game I really thought Dice Rolls would just 3-0, and they not only dropped maps, they actually lost the game. So it kind of reaffirmed what I had in my mind, that the Crusaders and Bench Boys were the best teams in the league, but I don't know. I just find it strange they would drop that game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it kind of make you fear Velocity University a bit more? Or do you think it's more something happened on Dice Roll's end?
I think it's more on dice rolls end. I'm not really worried. The only team I think is contentious with Bench Boys is Crusaders. So
Yeah, it's just I don't see Velocity University being even that viable right now. Like, we're probably gonna. I don't even remember if we're playing against them or not anytime soon, but no. It's just like the only two actually good teams right now are Bench Boys and Crusaders.
So you don't include dice rolls in that?
Not really.
Second place?
Almost all of their games have been very close this year, and I just haven't seen it being that good.
Okay. Zim, do you agree? That was him, I think.
yeah,
That
That was me, Chief.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
I do
Alex,
agree.
do you agree?
I do
Oh,
agree. I think most of their games were close, and I don't think it's like I think they kind of they're better than most teams, but I don't think they are the same level as the top two.
Okay. So let's move on to looking at the dynamic standings graph over for majors. We really didn't see a lot of movement this week. It was just kind of mostly cementing what's been happening. So you see Odyssey and Velocity University going up a bit, and Tempest and Bandicoots going down, but that's been kind of generally happening, as we can kind of see over the map differential graph. Is there anything else you guys want to be pointing out, kind of with what happened with staying? So overall, everyone stayed in the same place, though.
Oh, this is a minors dynamic, by the way.
That is correct.
Just looking at that, like, wait.
Yeah, so it's a little preview for next thing. Yeah, Joey got all this set up in like an hour, so we really can't blame for that. But yeah, so here's the majors dynamic graph.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it looks pretty normal. I don't like how high dice rolls is, but it's whatever.
Fascinating. You could see exactly when I had to go on vacation for Odyssey and exactly when I got back.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so Let's start looking into our predictions and preview for the upcoming week, which is really not a full week. It's just going to be one day, so only 4 matches, and one of them's not getting played. So we have 3 whole matches for you to look at in the majors division, and all the teams have clinched, so there's not going to be a lot of movement we're seeing here. It's more can these teams move up and down in seeding. So for the first match here, we have Odyssey versus Crusaders. Do you guys think that Crusaders is obviously kind of the team on top in the standings right now? Do you think there's any chance that Odyssey's gonna be able to pull that out?
Entirely honest, no, not this week. We just require more time to get some coaching in, get some understanding of the meta before we even have a chance to contend right now. It's just, yeah, no, Crusader's just too good for us to realistically win right now. We might be able to take a few maps off, but I highly doubt we'll win.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
I understood. So you think that's gonna be going towards Crusaders. And then I think the most interesting one we really have, the one everyone's going to be paying attention to in the majors division, is going to be Bench Boys versus Dice Rolls. I mean, the top 2 teams, you guys seem to not have too much faith in Dice Rolls, but Bench Boys have gone through restructuring recently and fell to Crusaders. It was a very close match, to be fair, but do you think there's a chance Bench Boys is going to lose this to DR?
I mean,
them
there's
dropping
definitely
a
a
map.
chance. Yeah, you go first.
Yeah, sorry. I could see Bench Boys potentially dropping a map, but I don't see any chance of them losing this unless it's like somehow completely blow up. It's just
Yeah,
Bench Boys are just better, honestly.
yeah. I mean, like we're probably fairly even on the skill level spectrum, considering we have a tank line that consists of 0 players in their actual role. So I think it just kind of comes down to whether or not in the next week we can cement how to play the game properly, especially because I coached Milks Winston for a while. It's pretty good. And if we're in a Winston heavy meta, it'd probably be pretty difficult considering our main tank is an off tank player and our off tank player is a TPS player.
Got it. Yeah. Um, Yeah, and I also think it's important to point out with dice rolls, all those are recent additions, so it's probably unlikely it's made a huge impact. Mr. Crit did move over there, and he's considered a really good coach. So that may kind of help them out, especially if he's really good at scouting. Maybe being able to figure out some strategies to fight bench boys in that match.
Mm. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, he's definitely a good coach, but I think that one of the more difficult things to do is play Winston in this meta because everything kind of just makes you fall over, and I'm not sure how well Mr. Crit understands Winston and how well he can teach Milk to play the game.
Got it. Yeah, and also I forgot to actually look at that standings graph there, just to show exactly who is going to be going to playoffs here. And give Joey a chance to switch over to that. But yeah, so obviously Bench Boys, Dice Rolls, and Crusaders right at the top there. But yeah, so you have Odyssey and Velocity University who kind of just moved into those positions, which are going to be taking the 4th and 5th slot. So we're going to be seeing Odyssey, assuming seeding doesn't change, which it definitely has an opportunity to. We kind of get to see Odyssey and Velocity University face off and kind of go into those bigger matches and fight to see who gets to face Bench Boys and gets to. But yeah, so that's kind of what we're looking at there. Any last major commentary from you guys? You guys seem to say it's like kind of pretty settled, and I understand there's not a lot of there's only one real interesting match coming up and only 3 matches in total. But any thoughts you guys just have in general for going into playoffs in this last week?
I think you're going to see us go back to rolling, if I'm being honest with you.
Zim, any thoughts on you and your team or any other team really?
I feel like at the moment, Bench Boys is number 2 to Crusaders, just because we saw them lose. It's very close, but for like maybe another week or 2, I see Bench Boys being number 2 and Crusaders number 1. But I just feel like Crusaders is worse coaching than Bench Boys, so I think it's going to get swapped when they actually play in playoffs.
Okay. But yeah, so if you guys don't really have anything else, I think that's going to close it out for us in the majors division. So we're going to go to a short break. We're going to go to a short break and bring it back to you with the minors division and our guests over there. And welcome back to the Nest. Just got done with the Majors division. Now moving on to the Minors division. We have the final Gambit from Odyssey Esports and Ping Central from the MSBY Black Jackals. So,
Hey,
hello to both.
folks.
And so let's get into talking about last week's matches. A number of really interesting ones, actually. I think the first one we have to talk about is MSBY's game versus Hyperion. I mean, that was such a significant upset for the Minors division. I mean, you guys going 3-1-1, so you guys had drawn there. So I'll just talk about what happened in that match.
I mean, Hyperion was playing down their main support player. But other than that, it was like a pretty good game. I would say it was pretty tightly contested throughout the entirety. It wasn't like it was like a stomp from us, because it wasn't. But yeah, I mean, Hyperion obviously was in like an unlucky situation for them, which sucks. But I think we took advantage of it, and we needed that. We needed to win that game if we wanted to keep our playoff aspirations alive. So.
Yeah, I mean, even if there's kind of roster issues going on, you guys being kind of in the position you are currently and going 3-1 against Hyperion, I think is a huge feat.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like, it bolstered our confidence a lot, especially heading into this week where we need to win these games. It's super important.
And from looking forward ahead to us as we're playing you guys, it's obviously makes us pause and do a little bit more prep than we had initially anticipated, because we didn't really expect that from you guys. So it's pretty interesting to see going into that match. We weren't really expecting you guys to kind of take them down, and now we've got that to think about.
I don't even really think we did either. It was definitely like something out of the blue, like no one expected. Yeah.
I mean, hey, King was telling me he was planning to 3-0 Hyperion. So
okay. So we all had our hopes up, because I think we had put a lot of preparation into the match. So we definitely all felt like in the back of our mind there was a possibility that we could beat this like team that just no one had gotten close to even taking a map off of. So like, there was always that little like glimmer of hope in the back of our minds. So I think for the most part, obviously, it was like, oh god, this team's really good, and we're not like at that point we're not confident at all. I mean, I don't know, we were like 1-4, so
yeah. Yes, moving on to some of the other interesting matches. I know it's down the bracket a lot, but I think it's good to acknowledge Road Warriors getting their first win right towards the end of the season over Kraken Skulls. It's a nice 3-0 victory from them. So I say good job to them. It's not much to talk about with it, but wanted to acknowledge it. Otherwise, I think the Velocity Force versus Odyssey Esports game is a bit important, because last week we didn't know exactly how powerful Odyssey was going to be. All we knew, they got 2 3-0s. And so we're kind of looking to the Velocity Force game to be like, how far are they going to go? How exactly powerful are they? So kind of falling kind of gives us an idea of where they stand. Gambit, from Odyssey, is there anything important you want to share from that game?
Yeah, it's tough. I didn't play in that game, although I did, catch up with everybody afterwards. It's definitely the closest match that we've played in the league yet. I think the skill parity, even though the rounds look pretty 3-0, obviously, each one for the most part went 99-99. So, we didn't go to distance in terms of taking maps, but I think outside of taking maps, it was about as close as it could get. And I think that was our first real kind of skill kind of differential where we saw, okay, this is what the teams in this division are capable of when they're well coordinated. So it was kind of a wake up call for us as we prepare for the next couple of matches that we have this week.
Got it. Yeah. So other than that, it's VMT falling Talonfire, further cementing their kind of fall from those top positions. I just think this one's kind of funny, because you have Black Jackals getting the exact same scoreline minus the tie map versus Road Warriors, as they did Hyperion, playing them both in the same week, and that's just humorous. First team at the time versus last team. Actually, it wouldn't have been the last team at that point. Kraken Skulls would have been, but it's funny.
Yeah, we suck at payload. I don't think we've won a single payload map this entire season. We definitely haven't got a 3-0 yet. So like I straight up think we just haven't won a payload map. We just suck at payload.
I'll also say too, it's like the teams at the bottom of this division, and again we're new, so we haven't played everybody yet, but there's a fair amount of talent in some of those teams. Really what they've got to work on is what every team needs to work on that hasn't necessarily been together for a while. Some of the basics, ult coordination, communications, coordinated pushes and things like that. The raw, some of them have some raw talent in their players, but and so they can take a map every now and then from a team that might be a little more coordinated or a little more talented, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Next major match to look at is Hyperion versus Talonfire, going 3-2. So I think they were still having some of the same problems that they had versus Black Jackals. Correct me if I'm wrong, the roster. Yeah, so that one was very, very close. Going 3-2. Map 5 is always fun. But yeah, so I think it's showing like they're still a bit weakened at that point. Any other commentary from you guys on that matchup?
The Hyperion versus Talonfire one. I think the implications are kind of there. Like, I think obviously this week was kind of like I know Hyperion obviously had their roster struggles, but it definitely shows that like Hyperion's beatable. And I think obviously seeing that from us and Talonfire, like being able to take maps and taking them to the wire in both games is like kind of important to look out if you're like a top team in minors, maybe thinking like, oh, maybe this team isn't as good as we thought. But yeah, I mean, I think minors is a little more up for grabs at the moment for like the top like 2 top 3 positions, which is kind of intriguing compared to like majors, which is more set in stone. But I don't know. I think the match has a good amount of impact. At least looking at the standings and everything.
Yeah. Also, apparently it was a map 6 actually, so there was a tie in there. Yeah. So just kind of further mentioning how close that was. An important game for Odyssey is getting the 3-1 victory over Vote Meme today. Kind of continuing their climb to actually be looking pretty decent for getting into playoffs, which we'll kind of break that down in a second. But Koala Kings gets a 3 over Velocity Force, pushing them into first place with that match. So Koala Kings really proving that they need to be counted along with those top teams. And then we had the really close game between Fire Nation, Kraken Skulls down at the between those like bottom 3 teams down there. Yeah, so let's take a look at standings and talk a little bit about playoffs. So right now there are 4 teams that can move in and out. It's going to be really hard for some of them to switch positions, but Koala Kings, Hyperion, Velocity Force, they're all safe. No seeding is guaranteed. As you can see, Koala Kings, Hyperion, I mean, they even have the same map differential. It literally comes down to the win percentage that they have with those maps. So very, very close there. Yeah, so it's like, let me get my notes because it really is tight. So for Talonfire to drop out, they need to lose like 3-0 and some other stuff needs to happen. For Odyssey, I believe you guys need to win both of your matches. Scoreline doesn't matter. For you guys, VMT, they need to beat Koala Kings. That's seeming kind of unlikely for them. And MSBY needs to go. The MSBY versus Odyssey game needs to go to map 5.
Yeah, so obviously for us, it's a big week, especially with 2 matches this week, coming into league late, have to,
I mean,
make up.
You guys control playoff implications in your hands, basically.
Yeah, no pressure. I think we're feeling pretty good about it. We're a team that's pretty confident with our game plan. We've been together for a while. We're lucky. We're a little unique. I think in the fact that we have a pretty large roster. We have multiple tanks, multiple supports, 4 DPS options. Each with a specialty. So, we're not afraid to switch people in and out, based on what we've seen from other teams so far in a particular match. So we're feeling pretty good, even with that added pressure, knowing that these next 2 matches are really important. And obviously, from we've seen from the standings, we know that they're both going to be pretty tough.
Yeah, and then MSU are also having a very, very uphill battle to get in. and they need to win both of their matches. They need Talonfire to beat Odyssey, and they need Koala Kings to beat VMT. But they do have a chance. So I assume you guys are doing a lot of prep over there, really planning so you can get your chance to go into playoffs.
Yeah. At MSBY, at least like from the coaching perspective, like we don't take any game lightly. Because obviously, like since we were on like the 4-game losing streaks at the beginning of the league and whatnot, we've just we've been taking every game one at a time, just putting all of our effort into the games. So we're definitely like putting everything forth, especially our game into Fire Nation. Like we cannot drop that game this week. And then leading into Odyssey, obviously that's going to be a very uphill challenge because they're looking very good right now. But we need to win that game, so we're going to bring everything to it.
Yeah. So we'll get into exactly what the upcoming matches are in a second. I do want to take a quick look at the map differential and dynamic standings graphs. So let's take a look at the dynamic standings here because there was a lot of shakeup in that last week. So we do see Koala Kings going up, Velocity Force sliding to third as Hyperion is going to be going to second. VMT finally moving down below Odyssey after kind of their lost streak, and Road Warriors Fire Nation kind of mixing it up there as well. So a lot of interesting stuff happening with the standings. And looking at the map differential graph, you can see kind of where these teams are really, really close. Obviously, Hyperion and Koala Kings are neck and neck. VMT and MSBY are really close in map differential. And you also have... sorry, I need to actually get closer so I can make sure I'm reading the right teams. So I believe that is Odyssey and Talonfire, also really, really close in map differential. So a lot of really close fights happening up there. Velocity is kind of just hanging out by itself, but things in minors are definitely interesting right now. So we're going to be getting into next week and taking a look at those matches and what we're thinking is going to be going on for them. So VMT versus Koala Kings. I think you kind of have to look at the loss streak VMT's had, and I don't think you guys can disagree that we think Koala Kings is probably going to take that unless VMT's really gotten their stuff together in the past week.
Yeah, hard to disagree on that.
Yeah, but it's going to be very important if VMT can take any maps off Koala Kings for playoff implications because that can move things around in terms of seeding a whole lot, and just all that stuff in general. So it's still going to be an important one to watch to see how much of a fight VMT can put up. I think what's going to be the closest game we have coming up this week, or one of the closest, because there's another one that's also going to be interesting, is Talonfire versus Odyssey.
We hope to make that true.
Yeah, I mean, just like, what are some of your thoughts kind of going into that, with just kind of Talonfire kind of having the strength they have and how you guys have been feeling?
Yeah, I know. We're confident with our game, but obviously this is going to be a big challenge for us. They're a good team, a comparable team. They've shown that they can win, and we have the added pressure of not a lot of time to prepare and specifically look at footage about them, given the games that we have this week. We already played one. We've got another one even after we play Talonfire as well. So, it should be an interesting challenge for us. May go the distance map wise. Hopefully, if it's as close as we think it's going to be, should be a really entertaining one either way. But we're going into it feeling confident, and hopefully we'll be able to win it out.
Yeah. Hyperion versus Road Warriors. I mean, it's kind of top team versus bottom team, but if Road Warriors manages to take a map off Hyperion's going to be none too happy about that, because that is going to pretty much guarantee they lose their top spot, or not lose their top spot, but can't gain it back from Koala Kings. Fire Nation versus Black Jackals. It's going to be another one where they're going to be trying for every single map, trying to get that 3-0, which, as Ping talked about, is going to be kind of hard just because they tend to lose that payload map. Ping on that.
I think Fire Nation's got some talent on there too. You know, they do have the ability to take maps even from, you know, stronger teams, you know, if it's the right situation.
Yeah, I 100% agree with it. We need to look towards getting a 3-0 here because I think the map differential is could potentially become what makes or breaks us getting into playoffs if certain things go their way. So we're definitely going to be trying our own in this game. This game is super important. I mean, all of our games this week are super important for us and playoff implications for a couple of the teams. So,
Yeah, I don't think a single game is unimportant here, either for
Yeah.
seeding or teams getting into playoffs.
Even at the top regarding like Hyperion and Koala Kings with the map differential and everything, like they're super close. Like if Hyperion's able to 3-0 Road Warriors and VMT's able to take a map from Koala Kings, and that's going to make a really big difference.
Yeah. And our last two games here, we have Velocity Force versus Kraken Skulls. I think that's the one that has the least amount of implications. But just because there's no one Velocity Force is in direct map differential point-to-point contention with. But I think that's still one where it's, you know, you're going to be watching to see if Kraken Skulls can take, you know, a good map or two off of Velocity Force. Then also just acknowledging Odyssey was able to 3-0 Kraken Skulls on Wednesday, I believe that game was played.
Yep. It was a good game, you know, quick one, but respect to them. Obviously, really important for us to win that one, given we're trying to get into the playoffs. And I think, in my mind, obviously, because I'm selfish, but the next match, the us versus Black Shackles, you know, there's a lot of implications for both of our teams in terms of playoffs for that match. So it should be a really good one.
Yeah, I think it's another one that has the potential to be really, really close. You know, going to map 5, I mean, we've seen some good strength out of Black Jackals. We've seen good strength out of you guys on Odyssey. And the implications are enormous. Like, who gets into playoffs is literally going to come down to the last match in the regular season from either division. So that's just wonderfully exciting.
Yeah, it's wild and it's great. It's great, you know, like that's why we all play, right?
Yeah, so I mean, since I have both of you here, I just need to hear kind of your full thoughts as you're willing to share. Obviously, you're not going to give us any secrets, but just your thoughts going into that.
You first, Bank.
Okay. Definitely be an uphill battle. We have some specific things that we've analyzed and VOD reviewed that we've been working on that we've polished a bit for upcoming for this week. We've worked on a lot of the kinks that we've been struggling with the past weeks. I think every week we tend to get a little bit stronger. Obviously, because I think we've been on a 3-game win streak. I don't think we've lost since like week 2, but I don't know. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna bring it all. So is Odyssey because they need to. This match means a ton, so it could definitely go either way. Like I think it's hard to predict this game.
Yeah, I same. I think it's going to be a really close one. Obviously, a lot of stakes for both teams. We're approaching it best we can. You know, a lot of matches for us this week, and not a ton of time to prep and review, but we're doing a little bit of that, and think we have a good game plan. But you know, that's when you put two teams that are pretty close to each other together in a match. Even when you have a good game plan, you never know if it's going to work or not, or how they're going to counter. So. You know, we're going into it confident, but you know, feeling like this will be a really, really close one.
Yeah, very excited.
Yeah. We also didn't really go over predictions. Kind of my bad on that. I'd say unless you guys are planning on going heavily against the grain, I'll only really ask you about Talonfire versus Odyssey. Who do you think kind of has the leg up? I'm feeling Gambit's going to be voting for his own team there. Yeah.
So I have to because for playoffs.
Yeah. I kind of think it's gonna be Talonfire. I've seen a lot of good things at it. I expect it to be map 5. I am not gonna be surprised if, like, honestly, like if there's a 3-0 that happens, I'm not even gonna be surprised about that. I think any score is possible in that game. Because I think even if it's a 3-0 for either team, it's gonna be a close one. So I think anything's possible. Other than that, we all generally agree, and then obviously you guys are voting through each of your own individual teams. And once again, I apologize, Kevin. I am predicting against you, but
where's the love? Come on.
I love MSBY a bit more.
That's fair. They've been
I'm
around
not
a
gonna
little
lie
longer.
about that one.
Yeah, obviously you're gonna vote your own team, but like it definitely can go either way. Like I trust in my team, but it'll be good. It'll be good. I'm excited.
Yeah, that's another one where I would not be surprised by any score line coming out of that. And I'm really excited. I actually get to cast both of those really close games, which I'm super hyped for. And I got my energy drinks prepared for that game. So take it to map 5 or map 6. We also take map 6s around here. But yeah, so that pretty much cleans it up for the minors divisions. Any final thoughts from you guys? You shared a lot, but just want to make sure any closing statements.
I just want to wish everyone good luck with their last few games of the season. It's going to be great. And I want to wish Gambit luck with the 3 Odyssey games they have to play this week. It's going to be really hard on like the mental and everything. I wish you guys luck. I want to see you guys succeed as well. So I don't know. Just good luck to everyone.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. And, I think this is a really exciting week of matches in this division. Obviously, we've got our work cut out for ourselves at Odyssey, but, there's a lot of interesting matches going on with a lot of potential when it comes to playoff implications. So I'm just excited, and, we've got a lot of work to do, but it's the fun kind of work. That's why we compete and why we do all of this. So it's exciting times.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys for joining us. And I am going to be tossing it. We're going to go to a break, but then it will be Misfit talking about the Misfit metrics. This is my last time seeing you guys as well. So goodbye and thank you for coming and watching. So make sure to stay tuned for the updates on the Misfit metric.
Bye, everyone.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nest. We are done with the regularly scheduled programming, and we will now be getting into week 4 of the Misfit metric. For those of you who don't know, this is my way of trying to make teams' SRs seem more accurate, or at least more malleable than the average SR shows it. I took into account average SR, peak SR, the best player, and the scrim range when making these statistics, and I've updated it every week. And now we will update it for week 4. We're going to start out in the Majors division. A lot of shakeup here. 2 really big upsets with Crusaders beating my team Bench Boys and with Velocity University taking down Dice Rolls. No more undefeated teams left in this division after this week, which is kind of a surprise to, I think, a lot of people. But yeah, I'm really excited that there has finally been some shakeups in this. I know it sounds weird saying that I'm excited that my team has lost, but I am excited knowing that there will be some competition against us going forward in the league. Moving down, no other really big upsets. There have been some forfeits on day 2. Both Bandit Cutes and Tempest have dropped out of the tournament. So all those games from day 2 have been marked as forfeits. And of course, those do not affect the numbers in the Misfit metric. So not a lot of opportunity for shakeups for some teams who had to play against them, but still important to note. So yeah, that's what does it. You can take a look at this right now. As always, I will be posting these images in the season discussions channel of the Owlet tournament Discord. If you'd like to be in that, just say something in chat and someone will get you the link. But yeah, we can get into how the standings have changed going forward. There hasn't really been that much of a shakeup. The big one is that Velocity Unity has gone up 2 spots, which is to be expected after they took down Dice Rolls. They got like a gain of like 51 SR from that. Really a big upset there. So they do get catapulted into the 5 spot. You will notice that the first 5 teams are ranked in order of their actual seeding for playoffs, at least right now. However, the ones that are out marked with the asterisk are not. And that's just, this metric wasn't perfect, but I still think it was pretty good. I still think it came pretty close to, transforming itself to be what the league actually ended up being, if that makes sense. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. Something I do want to point out really quickly about the upcoming games this week. Bench Boys, of course, plays Dice Rolls, which is going to be that fight for the first seed. Evelix said earlier on the show he is very, very confident in our ability to take that game. I personally think it's going to be much closer. I think in playoffs, we will be the better team if we have to go against Dice Rolls, and we will win that game pretty convincingly. But I think during the regular season, while our team is still undergoing the restructure and while Dice Rolls has the scouting from our former player Milk LL, I do think Dice Rolls has the advantage. So I'm expecting a close 3-2 in that match. I expect it to go the way of Dice Rolls, hoping for a different outcome, but I have to be realistic about our chances. So I just want to clear that up real quick. Yeah, we can get into the Minors division. Minors saw a lot more shakeup. There were a ton of close matches and a ton of there were upsets, close matches, a lot of movement here. I actually took into account the new team this time. Some of you may have noticed that I did not have Odyssey Esports in there last time, and that is because I did not get the information I needed to make their metric before the Nest. So we do have them on this week. I will point out, though, that I have not retroactively done math for their metric for the past week. So their metric has only been updated based on this week. I will be trying to do that sometime this weekend and take into account every match they've played. But for now, this only takes into account the matches they had this week. So it isn't perfectly accurate. On top of that, I have to redo all of the math for the Minors division because a 10th team was added. And for those of you that remember, the formula is based off of how many teams are in the division. So I have to take into account that another team was added for every game that has been retroactive, like every game that's been played so far. So I have to change like all the math. So this is just meant to be like a rough thing of how it's going to look for Minors. It is going to change drastically when I actually do get all this math done, which will happen if I actually have the motivation to do it this weekend. But that's enough of that. We can get into the upsets, talk about the games a little bit. Of course, as we saw earlier, MSBY did 3-1 Hyperion this week. Of course, they did have roster issues, but the metric does not reflect that. It is not advanced enough for that because I am just a little math boy who dropped out of engineering, cannot make it do all of the things, but I still think it's somewhat accurate. Hyperion drops 59 SR for that loss. Of course, MSBY being pretty low in the standings does contribute to that. Really big win for them. Good on that. Also to note, Koala Kings has beaten Velocity Force, which is going to drop them a little bit down. Velocity Force started pretty low because their numbers were not very high, but they've actually been a very, very nice surprise for this division, winning a lot of games and being very, very, like, I wouldn't say dominant, but very, very strong in the division. I don't think anyone expected them to be the number 3 seed going into playoffs, and that's what they are. The metric still isn't close to reflecting that, unfortunately. So again, I still have work to do, smoothing out the numbers and the way the metric works to make it perfectly accurate. But I still think it is interesting how they've gone so far. So now we can get into the changes that have happened so far with the rankings. And Hyperion and Koala Kings will still be in that 1 and 2 position. Talonfire being moved up, and Odyssey Esports, which started in 3rd based on their average or their initial Misfit metric being 2.8, put them like kind of high. But I dropped them down now that they have lost some games. Of course, again, like, it's not perfect. I haven't retroactively done the math yet. I need to get on that, but I did not have enough time to do it. But yeah, Talonfire moves up to the 3rd spot, and most teams stay where they are. The big change is going to be VMT dropping down all the way to 7th, and this is mostly due to a couple factors. Force, MSBY, and Talonfire all moved up a spot, but because Odyssey Esports was added in that 3rd spot, it actually didn't change, if that makes sense. So when Odyssey Esports was put in there, and then everything changed. Velocity Force got moved down to 6th. MSBY was moved down, or rather, the way it started, Velocity Force was in 6th. They got moved down to 7th. And the MSBY was in 7th. They got moved down to 8th, right? And now it's changed, so they go back up to their normal positions, if that makes sense. Like them, they move up a spot, but they don't change in comparison to the rest of the league. I'm doing a horrible job explaining this, but you guys get the idea, I hope. And if not, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But yeah, that is how the minors division has changed. Really excited to see how this plays out. Of course, a lot of stuff can still happen in that division in terms of playoffs, whereas majors is pretty set in stone. And I'm excited to see how that one ends up. But for now, that is going to do it for me. That is going to be it for the Misfit Metric tonight. Thank you all for coming and showing your support for this. I've had a lot of fun doing this metric every week. I know some people aren't super involved in it, but I really like doing it. It's been a lot of fun for me. And I'm glad to see that there are at least people who do support it. So that's going to do it for the Nest tonight. Thank you all for coming out. Be sure to tune into the broadcast this weekend. Going to be a lot of nice games, a lot of good playoff implications. You're not going to want to miss it. That's going to be me signing off. Thank you guys all for coming.